I'm Olivia Matthews and I'm 29 years old. I'm the creative director at a well-known advertising business. My life looked great when Ryan Collins asked me to marry him. I finally had something that was just mine after years of fighting with my younger sister Amber. After that terrible family dinner, my parents and sister planned to steal my wedding place and date. Amber gave them a cold look and said, "You can cry later. This day is mine." No one knew the terrible truth about Ryan that would make everything different. Click the link below if you've ever had family break your trust. Believe me, what happened next will make you doubt your family pride in every way. Being in a race with Amber all the time when I was a kid was like living in a constant state of stress. Twice as old as her. Even though I always wanted to be the caring big sister, Amber's needs always seemed to come first because of how our parents raised us. Amber's average success at school led to big celebrations, but my good grades were just acknowledged politely. It's not that they didn't love me, they just loved her more, it was clear. By the time I was an adult, I had built a life that wasn't affected by their slight bias. I worked hard at school and in my career, and I finally got my dream job as a creative director at Pinnacle Advertising in Chicago. My job, my coworkers, and my chosen family became who I am. I was great at telling stories that people could relate to, but I had no idea that my own family story was so broken up. It was at the National Advertising Conference in New York that I met Ryan Collins. She is very tall, has striking blue eyes, and is very sure of herself. After my talk about using emotional stories in digital marketing, he came up to me. He gave me his business card and said, "Your understanding of how people connect with each other is amazing. I'd love to talk about the possibility of working together." Ryan was not like any other guy I had dated. He was ambitious and smart as the CEO of a financial consulting company. We found that we both liked building photography, strange foreign films, and kayaking on our first date, which went from coffee to dinner. We couldn't be apart for weeks. That Ryan was so intense drew me in. He paid full attention to me when we were together, which may have been the first time in my life that I felt truly seen. He would tuck my hair behind my ear and say, "You're amazing, Olivia." Most people don't see what they have in front of them. After being with Ryan for 6 months, I realized I still didn't know much about his past. He avoided personal questions by changing the subject or giving a vague answer. When I asked about his family, he said they weren't in touch anymore without going into more detail. He didn't use social media much, and most of his friends were business associates I only saw twice. "My work requires discretion," he said when I asked about the mystery. "I've consulted for high-profile clients who value privacy." This made sense given his field, and the fact that he didn't want to share made the information he did give me feel more personal and unique. When I introduced Ryan to my parents and Amber at Thanksgiving, my mother liked him right away and strongly. Olivia gushed about how successful and good-looking he is while Ryan told them stories of his business successes. Amber looked at him with genuine interest and asked him direct questions about his income and way of life, which made me cringe. "Your sister seems very interested in my finances," Ryan said afterward. His tone light but his face guarded. "That's just Amber," I said with a sigh. At 8 months into our relationship, Ryan proposed on a weekend trip to Lake Michigan. He said, "She's always been focused on status." He paid a photographer to record the moment, and the proposal at sunset on a private beach looked like something out of a romance movie. The ring was beautiful. A 3-carat diamond cut like an emerald that sparkled every time I moved my hand. He put it on my finger and said, "I never thought I'd meet someone who gets me like you do." My mom asked Amber if she had heard the news when I called her with the news. "You're my future, Olivia." She's been so sad lately because she's having problems with her relationship with Jason. Mom said, "Maybe don't post on social media until I can tell her in person. You know how sensitive she can be." Even though this happened all the time, I didn't let it bother me. Ryan and I started planning our wedding right away. We were able to reserve the Lakeside Gardens spot after finding out that they had an opening for June 15, 2020. It was great. A beautiful glass building that looks out over the water and grounds full of early summer flowers. I told Ryan, "It's meant to be." The day after we got engaged, that date came up. As the wedding plans moved forward, I noticed that Ryan got more nervous whenever my family was involved. During the dinners we had with my parents every month, he kept looking at his phone and twice made reasons to leave early. When I mentioned that Ryan's business partner James be a groomsman, he said no without giving a reason. That's all he would say. There are some complicated dynamics. Let's enjoy this day alone. In hindsight, I should have asked about these red flags, but I was busy with my wedding binder color swatches and my mom's constant attempts to get Amber involved in every choice. Your sister should help pick out the clothes for the bridesmaids, right? Mom told me. She really knows what's in style. There's no way Amber is a girl. I told her, Mom, I've asked my friends at work and in college. After I told Amber about this, we texted back and forth for a week about how left out she felt. And in the end, I reluctantly asked her to join the wedding party. Ryan watched these conversations with a look of calculation that I didn't fully understand at the time. After a particularly annoying call with my mom, he said, Your family has interesting patterns. They seem determined to make Amber the most important person in your life. I said, It's always been this way. I sometimes feel like they only had me to get ready for their real daughter. Ryan grabbed me by the arms and kissed the top of my head. He said in a whisper, Then they're fools who don't see the treasure they have. I do though. Those words became my center as I continued to plan my wedding and family problems got worse. At that time I didn't know that Ryan had other plans. Plans that would reveal things about himself and my family that none of us were ready to face. 6 months before our wedding, small changes in our relationship started to show up, like tiny cracks in fine china. At first, they were so small that I wasn't sure I was seeing things correctly, but over time they grew until they were clearly cracks. Amber started calling me almost every day to talk about the wedding plans. A level of attention that had never been seen before from someone who wasn't usually that interested in my happiness. Her questions were mostly about the vendors, the costs, and Ryan's part in planning the event. That must be what, $20,000? She asked during one call. So he's paying for the bar and band in full. He must be making a lot of money. We're both contributing, I told her, feeling uneasy about how much she was talking about money. Why are you so interested now? She said, Just happy for my big sister. But her tone was fake. Can you send me your Pinterest board again? I want to hear all of your ideas. A week after this chat, Amber called Jason, her boyfriend of 3 years, in tears to break up with him. They had been talking about getting married, which made the timing extra hard for her. She sobbed on the phone. I just feel so alone now. Everyone else is moving on except me. Out of compassion, I invited her to stay at my apartment for the weekend, where Ryan and I tried to cheer her up with movies and takeout. Instead of crying, Amber seemed surprisingly calm, asking Ryan in-depth questions about his background and business ventures. Ryan answered calmly, but later he noticed how interested she seemed in his work. Your sister seems very interested in my work, he said after she went to bed. Almost like she's conducting an interview. 3 weeks after her devastating breakup, Amber introduced her new boyfriend at our parents' anniversary dinner. Michael Patterson was well-spoken and articulate, and he had an uncanny understanding of investment strategies that matched Ryan's. What was even more interesting was that he said his hobbies were architectural photography and foreign films, which were the same things Ryan had talked about on our first dates. I asked, noticing Ryan's stiff stance next to me. At a downtown coffee shop, Amber said, touching Michael's arm possessively. We hit it off right away. Although Ryan answered Michael's questions about specific financial rules and market predictions with professional courtesy, he became more distant as dinner went on. When Amber told my mother that they had already talked about moving in together, she clapped her hands together in joy. This is great, she said. When you know, you know. She had never given such quick approval to any of my relationships before. Later that night, I saw my parents and Amber talking in a huddle on the patio. When Ryan or I came up, they lowered their voices and avoided eye contact. When I asked what they were talking about so quietly, my mother quickly changed the subject. Just checking in, sweetheart. How are those wedding plans going? You know, it's best to be flexible with these big events. Sometimes things need to change for everyone's sake. The comment seemed off, but I thought it was just my mother's usual vague advice. Ryan, on the other hand, was very quiet on the way home. The new boyfriend of your sister seems to know people in my business, he finally said. Has she said how long they've known each other? I asked. Before I could answer, his phone rang with a text message that made him frown. He muttered, Sorry, work emergency. and then stopped to type a long answer. Another danger sign that I didn't understand correctly. The next week, Amber insisted on coming with me to a meeting with my florist, and she did so with a bunch of ideas. Suspiciously similar to my carefully chosen choices, she led the conversation by offering alternatives to my choices and saying things like, "We were thinking over and over again when we talked about my wedding." During her coffee break, Amber spilled her latte all over my wedding planner book, destroying months' worth of notes and color samples. Her apologies seemed forced, especially since she offered to take over some planning tasks right away to make things easier for me. One day, I got home early from work and found Amber in my apartment. She said she was dropping off a wedding magazine she thought I'd like. When I looked through it again later, I saw pages that were marked with post-it notes that were exact copies of my wedding idea. Same color scheme, dress style, and even cake patterns that are the same as mine. There were calculations and notes about how to call vendors in the margins. I called my best friend Tara to talk about how I felt. I told her, "I think Amber is copying my whole wedding plan. It looks like she's drawing a plan of everything I picked out." Tara reminded me in a soft voice that she's always been good with your stuff. "Remember how she wore your prom dress to her own prom even though you had bought her a different one? Like when she applied to your dream college right after you got in. It looks like Amber from the past but on a bigger size. But she has only been dating Michael for a few weeks. Why would she plan another wedding? It doesn't make sense. Unless," Tara hesitated, "unless she has something more important planned for right now. Liv, watch out for yourself. This doesn't feel right." After 2 days, Ryan came back from a work dinner looking upset. If I asked him to explain further, he changed the subject and said it was stress from work. When I woke up that night, he was hushed on the phone in our bathroom. His words, "It's not time yet," were heard by me. He said, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." When asked about it, he said it was a client from another country calling from a different time zone. Even though his answer made sense, I was starting to have doubts. It seemed like my sister and my fiancé were both acting in strange ways that were linked by an unseen thread I couldn't quite figure out. On Tuesday morning, the text from my mom showed up. "Dinner with the family tonight at 7 p.m. Everyone has to go." There was no reason or information given, just the urgent call I had become used to hearing all my life. "What should we bring?" I texted back, picturing a range of situations, from health concerns to money problems. "Just yourselves and open minds," was her vague answer. I got sidetracked at work all day and thought about what could happen. The message didn't surprise Ryan when I told him about it. He almost seemed like he was expecting it. "No matter what, we'll handle it together," he said, putting a reassuring squeeze on my hand that didn't quite reach his eyes. When we got to my parents' house, Amber's car was already in the driveway, along with an unfamiliar luxury sedan that I thought belonged to Michael. The mood inside was tense, but there was also an air of excitement that I didn't understand. My father poured drinks without looking at me, and my mother worried over appetizers that were set up too perfectly for no reason. I asked my father what was going on after 20 minutes of awkward small talk, and he looked at my mother before speaking to me. "Olivia, we need to talk about something important that affects the whole family. Are you sick? Is someone sick?" My chest puffed with fear. "No, nothing like that," my mother quickly interjected. "It's about money and timing." What followed was a carefully planned revelation that must have been practiced before we arrived. My father explained that their investments had unexpected problems that made it much harder for them to contribute to my wedding as promised. My mother said with a look that was equal parts guilt and determination, "We still want to help, but not in the way we had originally planned." Before I could process this information, Amber reached out and grabbed Michael's hand. "Michael and I are engaged," she said, showing off a diamond ring that looked surprisingly a lot like mine. "It was so romantic and unexpected," she said. After 3 weeks of dating, I couldn't hide my shock. "When it's right, I know," Michael replied, sliding his arm around Amber's waist. "We don't want to wait." As my mother spoke, the pieces started to fall into place in a sickeningly clear way. Because of our limited funds and the fact that both of our daughters are planning weddings, we wanted to talk about timing and resources. Amber cut her off to say that Mom was trying to say that it makes sense to set priorities. "Since Michael and I want to get married quickly and you and Ryan already have jobs, we thought you might think about delaying. Putting off our wedding, which has been fully planned and paid for." I looked around my family, waiting for someone to realize this was a cruel joke. My father wouldn't look at me. My family and I have talked about it, and we think it makes sense for Amber and Michael to take your date and venue. Everything is set up perfectly, and this way we can still help pay for one wedding the right way. You've talked about it as a family, I said slowly. But Ryan and I weren't part of this family talk about our wedding. We knew you'd be upset at first, my mother said, reaching for my hand. Olivia, you've always been the sensible one, the practical one, the one who gives up what she wants. I finished for her. Amber's face hardened. This is important to me. Michael and I need to get married quickly because of his visa situation. It was the first time I'd heard of any visa problems, and the explanation didn't make sense. We don't have time to plan a whole new wedding, and yours is already so perfect. You want to steal it? My voice broke with emotion. Share, my father said. Not steal. We've already talked to the venue about moving the reservation, which made my blood freeze. You've already called my venue without talking to me first. We knew you'd be difficult about it. And Amber sighed as if my anger was just an annoying temper tantrum instead of a legitimate one. That's why we took care of the logistics first. When I turned to Ryan, I thought he would share my anger, but he was just watching the scene with a cool head. What do you think about all this? I asked him. It's a surprise, he said slowly, but family issues are tricky. Maybe we should think about what's being suggested. His tepid answer felt like another deception, and I stood there shaking with anger and hurt. This is unbelievable. You're trying to steal my wedding day venue, and all the plans I've had for months, Amber said with a big smirk. Cry when you want to. It hit me like a punch in the gut when she said those mean words. I looked at each family member, hoping to see shame or remorse, but all I saw was determination and the expectation that I would eventually give in. You've always done this, I whispered. Always taken what's mine and expected me to accept it graciously. This is different, though. This is my wedding and my future with Ryan. A wedding can happen at any time, my mother insisted. Your sister needs this now, and what I need doesn't matter. What about what Ryan and I have planned and paid for? My father asked. We'll reimburse your deposits eventually once our finances get better. Eventually, I said the word hollow again, feeling the weight of broken promises from the past. Ryan stood up and put his hand on my back to steady me. I think Olivia and I need time to discuss this privately. It's a significant request you're making. There's nothing to discuss, I insisted, pulling away from his touch. They've already decided. They've already started changing plans behind our backs. Let's not make hasty decisions, Ryan warned in a serious tone. Emotions are high right now. I looked at him, the man I had agreed to marry, and wondered why he wasn't more angry for us. Something about his calm demeanor didn't seem right, like it had nothing to do with the betrayal going on around us. I grabbed my coat and said, I need to leave. I can't be here right now. Amber called after me. Olivia, don't be dramatic. This is happening whether you like it or not. The deposit is already in our names, I said as I stopped at the door and turned to face my family one last time. It's funny, but I've spent my whole life taking less so Amber could have more. I've stepped aside, kept quiet, and been the reasonable one before, but this time I won't bend. This time you've gone too far. As I walked to my car by myself, Ryan had stayed behind to make things better. I could feel something permanent breaking in our family structure. At the time, I didn't know that this painful crack would eventually reveal truths that would change all of our lives forever. It seemed like every hour after that terrible family dinner, my phone would buzz with messages from my mother, each one more manipulative than the last. Amber has already ordered invitations using your color scheme. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Your father and I taught you to be selfless, so why are you hurting your sister in this way? Everyone agrees that this is the best financial move, so why can't you see that? I stopped responding after 3 days because I couldn't take it anymore. Ryan's behavior was still strange. Instead of offering support, he suggested we take the high road and find another venue for later in the year. He told me that your family relationships are important while I sobbed on our couch, and that sometimes you have to make concessions to keep those bonds strong. Compromise. They stole our wedding, and the venue already confirmed that they transferred our deposit to Amber's name without my permission. Ryan's face briefly lit up with worry before returning to its normal state. You must have both been on the original contract, which is unfortunate, but legally there may not be much you can do. His legal advice felt cold and disconnected from the emotional pain I was feeling. When I suggested fighting the venue transfer, he told me not to because it would cause too much conflict. Things got worse when I got a thank you email from our photographer saying they were excited to work with Amber and Michael on what was supposed to be my wedding day. More messages like this came in, from the florist, caterer, band, and everyone else my parents or sister had contacted. They had systematically taken over every part of my carefully planned celebration. Telling Terera what was going on made me feel a little better for a moment. "This is beyond sibling rivalry," she yelled. "This is pathological behavior, and your parents are enabling it. They've always liked her, but this is different." I agreed. It feels planned, like they planned this ambush together. And Ryan's reaction is also strange. Terra watched carefully. Most partners would be furious for you. Before I could defend him, my phone rang. Sometimes dreams come true in unexpected ways. Amber wrote on Instagram, "I can't wait to tell you about our wonderful day at Lakeside Gardens on June 15th. Bride-to-be bliss dream venue." The picture showed her in a bridal boutique with dresses that looked just like the ones I had saved. The caption had details that matched my wedding idea boards, right down to the signature drinks and first dance song. Some of our mutual friends were confused and tagged me, asking if we were having a double wedding. Others who knew our relationship was tense sent private messages of concern. The fact that Amber's announcement was made public made the betrayal even worse. That evening, I found out Ryan had deleted several password-protected files from our shared cloud storage, including financial documents about the wedding costs. When asked about it, he said it was to relieve stress and move on with his life. His explanation didn't make sense, which made me even more suspicious of his true intentions. 2 days later, I was shopping to relieve stress when I ran into Amber at the same bridal salon where I had ordered my dress. She was modeling a gown that looked eerily similar to mine, surrounded by adoring staff and our proud mother. "Why are you lying here? What are you doing?" I asked, cutting them off in the middle of their champagne toast. Amber barely moved when she saw me, obviously finishing my wedding dress. "Since you didn't answer your mom's texts about returning your deposit, I picked something similar." "Similar? That dress looks almost exactly like mine. Are you really trying to change into me?" Our mother stepped in and led me to the door. "Olivia, please. You're making a fuss. Amber picked out this pattern on her own. It's not her fault that you both like the same things. Taste the same." I laughed very hard. "She has looked at and written down every single thing about my wedding. It's not an accident. It's a problem." Amber walked up, her face cold even though she was dressed for the wedding. "You think about yourself all the time. Have you thought that maybe I deserve this more? That maybe I've always been more deserving of good things than you? What do you want to say? What could be a good reason to steal my wedding?" She said with a chilling confidence. "I've always been their favorite. What I'm claiming is just what should come to me first. You had a chance to shine. It's my turn now. That might be something that your sweet Ryan gets better than you do." Her vague comment about Ryan set off danger bells. "What does that mean?" Amber just smiled and looked back at herself in the mirrors. "Nothing. It's just that some people know where the real value in a family lies." That night, when I got home from dinner with Tara earlier than planned, our apartment was empty. Ryan told someone via text message that he would be working late, but his laptop was still on the kitchen table. When his phone rang with a message, I caught a flash of a text from a number I hadn't saved. "The meeting is set. MP brings documents. NTS, 10 p.m. Riverdale Hotel. Michael Patterson is an MP." It looked like the connection was too important to ignore. I drove to the Riverdale Hotel, a quiet business building on the edge of the city, out of the blue and with growing doubt. In the dimly lit bar, I saw Ryan and Michael having a deep talk while their heads were buried in papers that were lying around them. Their body language suggested a plot rather than a new friendship. I stayed out of sight and watched as they passed papers back and forth. Ryan passed what looked like a USB drive. When they talked, it wasn't weird like when in-laws meet when things aren't going well. They moved together like they had been working together for a long time. When an ivory envelope appeared by courier the next morning, that was the last straw. The invitation was very fancy and said to come to Amber Matthews and Michael Patterson's wedding at Lakeside Gardens on June 15th. The design was an exact copy of invitations I had custom made with a freelance designer, right down to the unique monogram that I had spent weeks perfecting. The only thing that was different was that Amber's names were used instead of mine. There was a handwritten note from Amber along with the offer. I hope you can come as a visitor. Since you've been acting out lately, we've chosen not to include you in the wedding party. You might want to get help from a trainer before the big day. The planned cruelty turned everything I was feeling into a cold, clear determination. No longer was this just about a wedding. There was something more evil going on. The random link between Ryan and Michael, their secret meeting, the planned takeover of my wedding, and the fact that my family put on an unusually united front all pointed to a bigger plan that I couldn't fully understand yet. I chose what to do after putting the note on my kitchen table. It was time to find out what Ryan was hidden, how he was connected to Michael, and why my sister seemed so sure that she owned not only my wedding but also what seemed like my whole life. I couldn't get over the strange meeting between Ryan and Michael in the hotel. Ryan said that they had only met through our families, but they seemed very familiar to each other. It didn't make sense, and my professional sense told me I was missing important parts of a bigger puzzle. The first real sign I got was by accident. As I looked through Ryan's home office for tax papers, I found a passport in the back of his desk drawer. His well-known face was on it, but the name on it was Richard Collins, not Ryan. He was also 4 years older than he said he was because his birth date was wrong. When asked about it that night, Ryan easily brushed it off. That is my real ID. Ryan is my chosen business name. For safety reasons, a lot of leaders use variations. On the surface, his answer made sense, but I could tell he was hiding something because his eyes would dart away too quickly. That night, I carefully looked at Ryan's phone after waiting until his breathing got deeper from sleep. His password, my birthday, led him into a device that had surprisingly little personal information on it. There aren't any pictures from before we were together, not many contacts, and an email app that doesn't have any messages from more than 6 months ago. When we met, Ryan Collins seemed to have emerged from thin air. I told Tara over coffee the next morning, I need help. There's a problem with everything here. What kind of help? She asked, noticing how tired I looked. Help from professionals. Do you still talk to that private investigator that your law company hires? Tara's face turned serious. Do you think Ryan is doing something wrong? I'm not sure what to think anymore, but I need facts instead of more doubt. By that afternoon, I had hired Samuel Reeves, a private detective who used to work for the FBI and specializes in financial fraud. His fee ate up all of my savings, but something told me that this purchase would be a great one. I told them to start with these, giving the information Ryan said he had and the passport information, and look into any links with Michael Patterson. If they knew each other before my sister met him, I need to know. While I was waiting for the investigator's report, I did some research on my own internet. Ryan's company website had a lot of impressive qualifications and testimonials from happy clients. But when we looked into it more, we found that these references couldn't be checked independently. His LinkedIn profile had gaps in his work history that were explained as consulting periods, and the Harvard MBA school he said he went to didn't have an alumni record that matched his information. 3 days later, Reeves called with some early results. Your fiancé is not who he says he is, he said straight out. Ryan Collins is a fake name that was made up about 3 years ago. His real name is Richard Cowan, and he used to be the CFO of Meridian Investments before he quit suddenly because the SEC was looking into him for fraud in the company's books. My stomach dropped. He was never officially charged, but several investors lost millions of dollars. The case was settled privately, and Cowan agreed to never work in finance again. But he's now running a financial consulting firm, which I pointed out, under a new name and with carefully constructed credentials. It's a sophisticated case of identity theft that is just legal enough to avoid clear fraud charges. And Michael Patterson, is there a connection? That's where things get interesting, Reeves said. Patterson is actually Martin Petrovich, a former lawyer at Meridian who helped set up the settlements that kept Cowan out of jail. Their work together goes back years. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. Ryan, or rather Richard, had been lying about who he was from the first time we met. Our whole relationship was based on carefully constructed lies. But what was his ultimate goal? What could he want from me and my family? There's more, Reeves added grimly. Over the past 2 years, they've set up a number of fake businesses together. This suggests that they're getting ready for a big financial move, maybe another investment scheme. Do you think my family is their target? We're not rich. Maybe not rich directly, but your dad is on the board of Westlake Credit Union. Right. That job gives you a lot of power over lending decisions and access to high-value client information. Things started to fit together in a horrifying way. Ryan had targeted me because of my family ties, especially my father's position. Michael's sudden interest in Amber gave him even more access and legitimacy in our family. They changed the wedding venue and lied to my parents not because Amber was selfish, but as planned steps in a much bigger plan. The next day, I asked for an emergency meeting with Reeves, and he showed me proof that both men had been involved in financial wrongdoings in the past, and that they were still working together. Emails showed that they had planned how to talk to my family months before I met Ryan. What's their plan? I asked, staring at the damning proof. Based on recent transactions and company formations, they seem to be setting up investment opportunities that they'll probably show to your dad's bank contacts. Given their history, these will probably be sophisticated Ponzi schemes designed to extract maximum capital before collapsing. The confirmation of my worst fears left me numb. How do I stop them? It depends, Reeves said carefully. Are you ready to confront your fiancé directly? Or would you rather get more proof before calling the police? I made the hardest choice of my life that night. Instead of telling everyone right away that Ryan was cheating, I would play along for a while to get solid proof of his plans. To do this, I would have to carefully act like I didn't know about it all while secretly writing down everything. When Ryan got home, I greeted him with practiced normalcy, hiding the fact that I knew he was cheating behind a mask of normal domesticity. I told him over dinner, I've been thinking about the wedding situation. Maybe you're right about finding another date. Family harmony might be worth the sacrifice. His kiss on my cheek felt like acid, and his casual questions about my day were part of a fake act we were both putting on for different reasons. He looked relieved. Olivia, that's very mature of you. I've always admired your sense of reason. Will you help me explain my choice to my parents this weekend? Maybe we could go to dinner with Amber and Michael and make peace with the situation? Yes, I agree. He agreed too quickly. I'm sure we can all move on in a good way. Over the next week, I slowly gathered evidence while keeping up my act of acceptance. I put recording software on our home computer, recorded suspicious phone calls, and took pictures of documents Ryan carelessly left out in plain sight. Each discovery confirmed my worst fears while breaking my heart. The final confirmation came when I opened an email meant for Ryan that had detailed plans for approaching my dad's banking clients with investment opportunities in non-existent development projects. Ryan and Michael were supposed to disappear once the money cleared in their offshore accounts, and the fraud was thought to have been worth more than $20 million. I finally confronted Ryan in our living room, where I laid out copies of the most damning documents on our coffee table. Richard Cowan, I said simply, watching his face change from confusion to calculation. Do you like Ryan Collins better when you're running investment scams? He quickly got better, and his charm worked like a defense. Olivia, whatever you think you found has a reason. Yes, I changed my name because of some bad business luck, but that doesn't change who I am or how I feel about you. And how do you feel about me? I'm the daughter of a bank executive whose professional connections you've been planning to use since before we met. He straightened up. Our relationship isn't about business. I care about you just like Michael cares about Amber. That's why you two planned this whole thing, right? Two couples, twice as much access to my dad's network. Ryan's mask briefly fell, showing cold judgment instead of emotional pain. Your sister was always an easier target because she was so eager to compete with you and get attention. When you told her about your wedding plans, she practically begged to take your place. So you took advantage of her desire to be better than me. We just saw how the family worked and took advantage of it. The way he described how they were manipulating me made me feel sick. Your parents were surprisingly quick to stop supporting you when Michael told them about his family's fake investment opportunities. Were you ever planning to actually marry me? I asked. When I asked Ryan the last question that really mattered to him, he hesitated before answering. He finally admitted that getting married would have given our financial arrangements more formal protections. But I did enjoy our time together, Olivia. You weren't just a means to an end. His response, which was meant to be cruel, made me even more determined. Get out, I whispered. Get your things and leave before I call the police with this evidence. You won't do that, he replied with confidence. If you expose me, you'll make your family look bad in public. People in the neighborhood would look down on your parents. The heart of your sister would break. You've spent your whole life, even when it cost you, keeping them safe. I felt something new inside me when he told me with confidence that I would continue to sacrifice for others, even after being betrayed. It was the first time I realized how my family structure had made me easy to control. How my willingness to always put others first had attracted a predator who was looking for someone just like me. You're wrong, I said, keeping my voice steady. This time the truth matters more than anyone's comfort, including mine. As Ryan gathered his essentials and warned me that this wouldn't end well for anyone, I was faced with an impossible choice. How to keep my family safe from impending financial fraud, while telling them the painful truth that would break their trust in Amber's relationship and show our parents' favoritism for what it really was, a weakness. Now that Ryan's lie was proven, I had to warn my family before the damage was too great to fix. My first thought was to call my parents right away, but I knew from experience that they might dismiss my worries as jealousy or overreaction. This situation needed strong, well-planned evidence. I spent 2 days putting together a file that detailed Ryan and Michael's real names, their history of fraud in business, and their current plan to use my father's banking connections to steal money. The dossier had official records, financial documents, and messages between the men talking about their plans for my family. My first attempt to help went exactly as I thought it would. I called my parents and asked for an urgent meeting to talk about my concerns about Ryan and Michael's backgrounds. My mother got angry right away. Olivia, we know you're upset about the wedding, but she told you that trying to ruin your sister's relationship was rude. Michael comes from a good family with a lot of business interests, and your dad has already talked to him about possible investment opportunities. I insisted that was exactly what I was worried about. I have proof that these investment opportunities might not be real based on what? Your own research. Because you're jealous. Your dad has been a banker for 30 years, so I think he can spot a good investment.